Hello everyone. So we're going to continue with Chapter 6 of Islamic Law by Robert Spencer. Essentially, he continues on after his play on the propaganda and fear of people trusting Muslim spokesmen to theft. And he says theft, it all depends on who you're stealing from. And he mentions the punishment in the Quran, chapter 5, verse 38, which says, "As for the thief, both male and female cut off their hands. It is reward of their own deeds, an exemplary punishment from Allah. Allah is mighty wise." Of course, Mr. Spencer doesn't get into the details about this punishment in Islam, and so he does a disservice to that concept. But then he says that he tries to equate wartime spoils with stealing. One thing you have to understand is this punishment is for people living in an Islamic state. The other scenario, which he quotes, is when Muslims are at war with someone and you have to divide what is the spoils that are left over. Quran verse 41 mentions this. And also when the Treaty of Hudaybiyah with the Quraysh was signed, he mentions, "Allah promise you much booty that ye will capture, and hath given you this in advance, and hath withheld men's hands from you, that it may be a token for the believers, that he may guide you on a right path." That's 48:18 through 20. So we're talking about two separate things here. We're talking about stealing an Islamic state, but then war booties when they're divided after warfare is concluded. He tries to equate both of them as being the same, but these are two different scenarios. He then goes into murder. It all depends on whom you're killing. That's what he calls it. And he says the Quran is quoted by many Muslim apologists, chapter 5, verse 32, "Whosoever killeth a human being for other than manslaughter or corruption in the earth, it shall be as if he had killed all mankind, and whoso saveth the life of one, it shall be as if he had saved the life of all mankind." And then he says in his passage, and I find this complete and utter hypocrisy on his part, and kind of an ironic statement. He encourages people to read it in the context, because he says that this is only directed towards the Jews. And he quotes the whole passage. Good for him. Glad to see that Mr. Spencer finally, in chapter 6 of his book, quotes something in context. And he says, "On that account we ordained for the children of Israel that if anyone slew a person, unless it be for murder or for spreading mischief in the land, it would be as if he slew the whole people, and if anyone saved a life, it would be as if he saved the life of the whole people. Then, although there came to them our messengers with clear signs, yet even after that many of them continued to commit excess in the land. The punishment for those who wage war against the law and his messenger, and strive with might and main for mischief through the land, is execution or crucifixion, the cutting off of the hands and feet from opposite sides, or exile from the land, and that is their disgrace in this world, and a heavy punishment is theirs in the hereafter." That's Quran 5:31 through 33. So he tries to say that this passage of slaying people, innocent people, is only for the Jews. However, he does not understand Islamic theology. Islamic theology, it claims the Quran is the final revelation to all of mankind, and so the parts of the earlier revelations of the Torah that was presented by Moses, in the Injil, which was presented by Jesus Christ, all the parts that were not changed by mankind are therefore elements of those can be found in the Quran. So for him to say that this is only for the Jews, well, the Muslims claim that everything in the Quran is for all of mankind. So he needs to understand Islamic theology. This passage, yes, Allah is talking about something that was told to the Jews, but is also relevant for the Muslims according to their own theology. He then quotes completely out of oh, and by the way, if that doesn't satisfy his lust for ignorance, there is another quote here from chapter 17, verse 33. "You shall not kill any person, for God has made life sacred, except in the course of justice. If one is killed unjustly, then we give his heir authority to enforce justice. Thus he shall not exceed the limits in avenging the murder. He will be helped." And I will read the part of this verse that is the most powerful. "You shall not kill any person, for God has made life sacred, except in the course of justice." So there are other verses that talk about this subject, not just that one in particular, but Mr. Spencer, of course, does not quote that verse. He then quotes out of context Surah 9, verse 5, and all he says is slay the unbelievers. I've dealt with Surah 9 before with Mr. Spencer. We don't need to get into that here, but here he is still taking things completely out of context. So then we have he gets into this very fascinating passages here where he talks about universal moral values. And I find this very, very ironic, and I'm going to point out to you why. He talks about C.S. Lewis, the author of the Chronicles of Narnia, but he also is famous for writing many Christian apologetic writings. This is his Abolition of Man. And Mr. Spencer does mention this book in this passage, and he gives a background of what the Abolition of Man is all about. He says that this book, he tries to find, C.S. Lewis tries to find common ground between all these different religions or philosophies, and he has, the law of special beneficence, duties to parents and elders, basically commonalities between all these faiths. Spencer's reason for bringing up C.S. Lewis's book is he says that the Quran, the Hadiths, and Muhammad and Islam are not mentioned in his book. And he says it in Lewis's book. And Spencer says he finds it hard to believe that Lewis would be ignorant of Islam. Maybe he was. And that he's trying to figure out why is it that Islam is not represented in this book of common faiths. And he essentially tries to paint this picture that Lewis, like Spencer's conclusion, is that Islam has no moral values. Well, I want to point something out to you. I have this book, obviously, I own it, and I tried to look through here, and I was taking note of all of the, the Greeks are mentioned, the Vikings are mentioned, all these different religions and philosophies are mentioned, but one thing that I found very interesting is that Buddha is not represented in this book. And I don't understand why he's not in here. Buddha is not quoted in this book. The Hindus are quoted, the Taoists, but Buddha is not in this book. And I think if you're going to have anyone that has any sort of morality, it would be Buddha. But C.S. Lewis does not include Buddha in this book. So, was Buddha not a moral person? Did Buddha not have any morals? Was C.S. Lewis ignorant of Buddha? Perhaps. Perhaps all those are correct. But you see my point here? Just because Islam is not mentioned by C.S. Lewis does not mean that, who was a Christian apologetic, does not mean that Islam does not have any moral values. Because if you're going to use that analogy, then I could say that, well, Buddha's not in there, so therefore, according to C.S. Lewis, Buddha has no morality. But we know as intelligent people, that is incorrect. Buddha did have a lot of great morals, and just like in Islam, there are a lot of great morals, even if Mr. Spencer is ignorant of them. But then he also talks about the difference between Jesus and Muhammad, and he mentions Jesus' golden rule: do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. But he neglects to mention that this concept is also in Islam. Is it quoted in such a way exactly? No. But in the Quran, chapter 60, verse 8 says, Allah forbids you not with regard to those who fight you not for your faith, nor drive you out of your homes from dealing kindly and justly with them, for Allah loveth those who are just. So there the Quran says that you can deal justly with people who are nice to you. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. In the Hadith, it was recorded by Ali that the Prophet Muhammad said, let's see here. Let's see. Okay. If I can find it. It says, pardon one who does harm to you. Join him who cuts you off. Do good to him who does evil to you, and speak the truth, although it be against yourself. Very reminiscent of the golden rule. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Forgive people. Be forgiving of other people, which Jesus mentioned as well. Muhammad mentions the same thing. He ends this whole chapter by saying that Islam apparently claims that you shall not kill innocent people, yet he quotes a couple of extremists who say that all Israelis are not innocent and things like this. Well, he's quoting an extremist. But in Islam, you are not allowed to kill innocent people. You find this in the Quran and in the Hadiths, which Mr. Spencer does make mention of, but he says, oh, but just because the Quran and the Hadiths say that, look, I'm going to quote this person, the famous Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi, who says Israeli women are not like women in our society because Israeli women are not, innocent, things like this. So he's quoting an extremist to prove his point. When in Islamic theology, you are not allowed to kill innocent people, it's combatants versus combatants. So I hope I've shed some light on this topic. Thank you for watching, and I hope that we've all learned something about this topic and how Mr. Spencer still is misrepresenting and abusing Islamic sources. Thank you for watching. Peace be with you all.